Let's talk some chess. This game took place in the 2014 World Chess Championship. Magnus Carlsen, who was the challenger at the time, is playing with the white pieces against Vishy Anand, who was the reigning world champion. This was game 6 of the match, so a very early, important game. You're probably wondering about the title of this video. We'll get to the blunder soon enough, but we have to start the game first. Magnus kicks us off with e4. We have c5 by Anand, the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, e6, d4, c takes on d4, knight takes on d4, a6, c4, knight to f6, attacking this e4 pawn. Magnus defends it with knight to c3, bishop to b4, pinning the knight to the king, queen to d3, protecting the pawn further, knight to c6, knight takes on c6, d takes on c6, and this allows Magnus sort of a mini advantage. He captures the queen on d8 with check, and now when Anand's king takes back, this king has moved, so it no longer has castling privileges and sort of will be in an awkward position as the game continues. So e5 by Magnus, attacking this knight on f6. The knight retreats to d7. It does come with an attack on e5, so Magnus defends it with bishop to f4, and now Anand takes the knight on c3. Pawn takes on c3, so now Magnus has these two doubled pawns, which are a little bit ugly. King to c7, maybe hoping to artificially castle queenside, and now h4 by Magnus, expanding on the king side. b6, h5, pushing onwards, h6, stopping the march of that h-pawn, and now Magnus castles queenside, and this is sort of an ugly fortress for the king. There's not too many pawns in the vicinity, but it's completely fine. He gets his rook on the open d-file, which is sort of maybe the most important part of this this castling idea. Bishop to b7, fianchettoing the light squared bishop, rook to d3, a nice rook lift, c5, rook to g3. This is a nice move because it attacks the g7 pawn, which is undefended, but it also defends the g2 pawn, which is attacked by the light squared bishop on b7. So the rook, Anand slides his rook over to protect, but now bishop to d3, developing his piece, his final minor piece. Knight to f8 by Anand, preparing to reroute the knight, and now bishop to e3 by Magnus. g6, we have pawn takes, knight takes. That's the idea behind moving the knight back to f8, and now rook to h5 by Magnus, lifting his rook to the 5th rank to protect this pawn on e5, which is under attack from the knight. Bishop to c6 by Anand, bishop to c2 by Magnus, king to b7, rook to g4, a5, bishop to d1, rook to d8, rook to c2, rook d to g8. And in this position, Magnus has a slight positional advantage, but this is exactly the type of game that Magnus likes to sort of just grind out and win in the end game and play perfectly and just sort of dominate. The idea here is that Magnus's rooks are much more active. They're on the 4th and 5th rank. He has the bishop pair compared to a bishop and a knight. These rooks are not really doing much, and it's difficult for them to get into the game. They're trying to defend sort of the knight and the pawn, and this pawn even, there's a double attack on this pawn, so that's sort of troublesome. So Magnus just has to play very solidly here to kind of keep his winning position. One potential continuation, there are many, but one that the engine sort of recommends is rook back to g3, and now Anand doesn't have really many moves here that make progress, so after a4, Magnus can play a3 to stop this pawn, and now king to a6, rook to g4, the knight retreats to e7, we have a rook trade, and now finally, after defending his pawn on g3, now so the rook can't take the pawn, after knight to g6, finally, the bishop takes on h6, and now Magnus is up a pawn. He still has the bishop pair, and this is an endgame that Magnus can surely win. So Magnus just has to play very solidly and go into that sort of endgame. Unfortunately, here he makes a massive blunder, which is kind of unheard of for Magnus at this level. It's a sensible move in that he wants to improve the position of his king, but it doesn't work. It's king to d2, and here Anand has a chance to get back into the game with a move that turns his losing position into a winning one. So see if you can find that move while I give you a couple of seconds. Okay, the move is knight takes on e5. And what's great about this move is it takes the pawn on e5. It is defended by the rook, and now it looks like the knight is hanging. But if rook takes knight on e5, note that Anand has opened up a discovered attack from his rook on g8. So rook takes rook, and Anand is up the exchange. So you can't take the knight with the rook. The best continuation here for Magnus would be to take the rook on g8. But now instead of taking the rook back, first Anand plays knight to c4, checking the enemy king, king to d3, knight to b2 with check, king to d2, and now finally rook takes on g8. And now Anand is up 2 pawns. So you'll notice during this knight sort of gallop across the board, the knight captured, that's not what I want to show. The knight captured the e5 pawn and then the c4 pawn. So when all is said and done, Anand is up 2 pawns. Anand's h6 pawn may fall, of course, to the bishop and the rook, but then Anand will be up 1 pawn. And in any case, Anand has to waste a move playing g3 to protect this pawn from the rook on the g-file. So Anand will be up a pawn after the h6 pawn eventually falls. His pieces are much more active. This is a very powerful knight on b2. This king of Magnus's suddenly looks a lot less safe. So this is now a winning position for Anand. Unfortunately, Anand actually did not see this move, and that's kind of the really crazy thing. It's certainly crazy that Magnus played king to d2. It's even crazier that Anand didn't see this and take advantage of it. In the sort of post-game press conference, Magnus said, I'm very lucky. I'm not sure what Anand said. Probably, wasn't too happy that he missed the move. Here, Anand just played a4, and Magnus very quickly makes up for his mistake with king to e2. And now this idea doesn't work. For example, if you take with the knight, let me just make sure I got this right. Yeah. Now I knew, but I wanted to double check. Now, if you take with the knight on e5, then you can take the rook on g8. Or wait, the important part is that I'm mixing myself up. This is what happens when you prepare and then you question your preparation, and then you end up messing up. The whole idea is after knight takes on e5 here, you don't have knight takes on c4 with check. That obviously wins the tempo because the king is no longer on d2, so that continuation doesn't work. That's the basic idea. So after, anyways, Anand doesn't play this because, again, there's no knight to c4 with check. Instead, he just continues pushing the a pawn to a3, and now Magnus breathes a sigh of relief and just plays very solidly. We have f3, protecting this rook now on g4, rook to d8, controlling the open file, king to e1, rook to d7, bishop to c1, attacking this pawn, rook to a8, king to e2, bishop to a4, bishop to e4 with check, rook, bishop blocks on c6, bishop takes knight, pawn takes, and now Magnus just gobbles up these pawns, and now these rooks are just going to be monsters and eat all these pawns and win the game. So bishop to a4, rook takes on e6, rook to d1, bishop takes on a3, rook to a1, king to e3, bishop to c2, king to e7 with check, and in this position, Anand resigned the game. There's no good continuation here. The best one is king to a6, but then rook takes on h6, and Magnus has a million pawns, 3 passed pawns, and it's going to be basically impossible to stop this pawn from marching to, we can show a couple of moves, but it's going to be very hard to prevent this pawn from promoting on e8. So that's the game. Magnus definitely, breathed a sigh of relief. We call it the secret blunder because he made the blunder, but it wasn't spotted in game, and he was able to survive. And of course, Magnus eventually won and won his first world championship of many. So an amazing game, 2 amazing, incredible players at the top of their game. So it's rare to see a blunder like this, but thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Drop a like, drop subscribe, and we'll see you next time.